Welcome to the P.A.S. Report podcast. If you're tired of censorship, outraged by government abuses, and thirsty for real insights, then you're in the right place. Get ready, because here, the fight for freedom never ends. Here's your host, Professor Nick Giordano.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the P.A.S. Report podcast. This is your host, Nick Giordano. I am glad you could join me. Make sure to subscribe and follow the podcast so you never miss an episode. Also, follow me on social media at P.A.S. Report when it comes to X and Instagram, Nicholas Giordano on LinkedIn and Facebook. And share this episode with 3 to 4 other people. There is a lot to cover this week, and I want to continue with part 2 of my new contract with America. But before I get into any of that, I have to address something that's really aggravating me. And no, I am not talking about the politicians. I'm talking about ordinary Americans, because we are living in an era where people, they're all too eager to criticize and scream about what should be done. But only when the other side is in charge, only when the other side is in power. The minute their people take over, everything magically becomes acceptable. There's no criticism, no standards. It's just excuses and fawning, hero worship. It drives me insane. Now, I want to be very clear. I have one of the best audiences out there. I have an audience that's curious. They want to be informed. They can think critically and actually put their emotions aside. And that's why I appreciate each and every one of you who listen to this podcast. But I also need everyone to understand something that's critically important. I am not here to validate anyone's opinions. I'm here to challenge the conventional wisdom. I'm here to force uncomfortable questions, because we have to look at the big picture. We have to look at where America is headed, not just when Democrats are in charge, but when Republicans are in charge too. Now, I encourage disagreement. Every now and then I get emails, messages of people who disagree with something I said, and I love that. I love that. I love the back and forth. Don't be a lemming. Don't just repeat talking points because you heard them from someone you like. You have to think. Think for yourself. I know several hosts out there, and I'm talking big hosts. They tiptoe around the issues because they're terrified of losing part of their audience. They know their listeners can be delicate, that they self-censor. They pull punches. That's not how I operate. It's not my style. I'm going to call it exactly as I see it, even if people are going to get upset, which brings me to this bizarre situation that unfolded last week. Miranda Devine, she has been on this show before. I consider her a friend. She's a great person. She's someone that exposes a lot of the truths that exist out there. And she published a piece about an internal assessment of FBI leadership. Now, the findings of this piece were damning. You had current and former agents describe dysfunction, low morale, internal environment that is broken, essentially. Now, you'd think everyone would want to know what's going on, but instead of asking questions, people began to attack Miranda Devine. People on the right that have supported her for years because of the hard investigations that she's done, the things that she has exposed in her reporting. But it wasn't just ordinary people. It was also FBI leadership. We're talking the current director, Kash Patel, deputy director, Dan Bongino. They rushed out statements dismissing her reporting. You even had Deputy Director Dan Bongino put up a post on X accusing Miranda Devine of being part of the deep state, a deep state operative. Yes, he called Miranda Devine, the journalist who exposed the laptop from hell, who took enormous heat for it. He called her a deep state operative. He accused her of attacking his and Kash Patel's reform agenda, and he suggested that she prefers the old guard, the Comey Ray crowd, the same crowd she routinely criticized and exposed their abuses of power. It's absurd, the whole thing. And what shocked me were the people online who immediately piled on Miranda. Why? Because she dared to be critical of Kash Patel and Dan Bongino? Because she didn't kneel at the altar? And that alone triggers outrage? And here's the problem. Take the blinders off. I don't care how much you like Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. Okay, I had a lot of faith in them coming in, but they've been enormous disappointments. And I say that as someone who wanted them to succeed. I thought they were the right people for the job. They talked a great game, but what have they actually done? I mean, let's be honest here. People keep saying they're reforming the FBI. Really? Really? How? Show me. I want anyone out there to show me what reforms, what meaningful institutional changes have we seen from them? What systems have been dismantled to prevent the future weaponization of the FBI? What transparency measures have been implemented? What documentation, when I say documentation, I am talking about completely unredacted, has been released so the American people can see exactly what has happened over the last several decades and the enormous abuses of power that have taken place? And the answer is simple. Nothing of substance has changed. And spare me this whole BS reform takes time talking point. That's a cop-out. Look at what Tulsi Gabbard has done at the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. She cut the staff by 40%. She slashed $700 million from the budget. She declassified thousands of pages showing how the intelligence agencies, how the people in power abused their power. She didn't hide it. It was their own words, their own emails, their own discussions, their own notes. She exposed how Republicans in Congress were being monitored, how conservative organizations were being monitored. She didn't talk about reform. She actually did it. She didn't say reform takes time. And now compare that to the FBI. When we look at the FBI, let me ask everyone out there, has their budget been cut? No, it hasn't. In fact, it's bigger. Have staffing levels dropped? No, they still have over 30,000 personnel. Have they released documents of substance? And the answer is no. They still hide behind the redactions. And outside of firing a few dozen people, nothing systemic has changed. But look at the hypocrisy. Look at the hypocrisy all over the place. You know, when Ray used his private jet, people were furious. He was getting criticized by people on the right. When Cash does it, everyone gets quiet. When Cash and Bongino spend half their day posting on social media, attacking anyone who criticizes him, that's okay. What if Ray would have done that? Now, I'm sorry. This may be hard for some people to understand, but if you believe in truth and accountability, it has to apply across the board. You can't become an apologist just because the people in power now happen to be your people. And for anyone who wants to criticize me for saying this, don't be naive. Power is power. Government is government. If you are unwilling to hold your side to the same standards that you held under the last administration, then you're part of a problem out there. Because I want every single American, every single listener of this program to think about how the national strategy for countering domestic terrorism, something that I've been on top of since its release in June of 2021, remains fully intact. This was the vehicle used to target ordinary Americans, used to target parents, Catholics, Republicans, conservatives, political opponents. It hasn't been dismantled. It hasn't been rescinded. It remains, and Republicans ignore it. They don't talk about it at all. Now ask yourself a simple question. If you demanded reform under the last administration, why are you so quiet now? Why should the lack of real reform be acceptable because different people are sitting in those chairs now? If the system itself is the problem, then it shouldn't matter who temporarily controls the system. Power will always be abused unless you actually dismantle the mechanisms that led to the abuses. And I'm not seeing that right now. And that brings us back to why I'm doing this New Contract with America series. We can't fix the country with blind loyalty. We can't fix this country with excuses. We can only fix it with real solutions. We could only fix it by restoring the principles that once made this country strong: limited government, self-reliance, a system that's answerable to the people of the United States. Now, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I'm diving into part 2 of the New Contract with America. We're going to start with the monster in the room. We're going to start with Social Security and Medicare, because if we don't fix these programs soon, they will collapse, and you, the American people, will pay the price. So everyone, hang tight, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the P.A.S. Report podcast. Now that I got that off my chest, I want to get back to the New Contract with America, because last weekend I outlined real, practical, conservative solutions that are going to go a long way in fixing major problems that this country is facing. And it's a clear blueprint I laid it out last week. I laid out the first 6 issues: end government weaponization, eliminate waste and fraud, restore the concept of federalism, lower healthcare costs, reduce dependency through welfare reform, and revive the spirit of self-reliance, and fix a failed education system that has abandoned our children. That not only abandoned our children, but it also threatens our future. So today, I want to talk about 2 more issues in what's going to be part 2 of this series. And I want to start with something politicians in both parties refuse to touch. I'm talking about the third rail of politics: Social Security and Medicare. There's a reason it's called the third rail. If you go into the subway, the third rail is the one carrying all the electricity. You touch it, you get fried. In politics, Social Security and Medicare has always been the third rail, because the second anyone even mentions reform, the attack ads start, the scare tactics begin. Talk of reform ends immediately because the politicians are cowards. They're not brave people. But the truth is, someone has to touch the third rail because Social Security and Medicare are going broke. Democrats know it. Republicans know it. Everyone in Washington knows it. However, they're too big of cowards to fix it because they're terrified of losing an election. And that's how pathetic we become. The conventional wisdom says that if you change even one comma of these programs, your political career is over. Opponents run ads showing you pushing grandma off the cliff. They scream that you hate the poor, that you want people to die. And guess who suffers because of this cowardice? You. You, the American people, your children, your grandchildren, our nation. So today, I'm doing what they won't. I'm going to grab the third rail with both hands. I'm going to explain what's broken, what happens if we do nothing. But most importantly, I am going to lay out real, workable, conservative solutions that secure these programs, not just now, but for future generations. We have to look at younger Americans and how disconnected they are and ask why. And here's the beauty. My plan doesn't hurt a single senior citizen. So now what's actually wrong? Well, the math doesn't lie. We're not doing DEI math here. So we're going to start with Social Security. Social Security is not a savings account. There's no vault with your money in it. It's a pay-as-you-go system. Today's workers pay for today's retirees. Now, that might have worked well in the 1950s. You had the baby boom generation. We had 16 workers for every retiree. But today, it doesn't make any sense. We're at 2.8 workers per retiree, and that's falling fast. It's going to drop down to 2.1 soon. People are living longer, so they're collecting benefits longer. People are having fewer kids. Fewer kids means that as they grow up, there's fewer people in the workplace. There's more people that are taking from the system than putting into the system. This isn't about ideology. It's not about politics. It's about simple math. The math is breaking. You look at Social Security's trust fund. It runs dry in 7 years. 7 years. That's it. 2032. That's the end date. And what happens then? What happens if nothing changes? If everything remains the way it is today and nothing changes, what happens? Well, every single American collecting Social Security will get a 20 to 25% cut to their benefits, and every future person that will be ultimately collecting Social Security will get a cut to their future benefits as well. Congress doesn't vote on this. There's no debate. It just automatically happens. And politicians don't want you to know that, but that's the reality. Medicare, it's even worse. Medicare Part A hits insolvency around the same time. 6, 7 years. We have medical costs that keep on skyrocketing because in this country, we pay for volume. We don't pay for outcomes. We pay for the status quo. We see the bureaucracy growing. We see fraud exploding. The incentives in this country are all backwards. So if we do nothing, we guarantee both programs collapse. And fear-mongering is the only thing keeping us from fixing these problems. Every time reform comes up, the same predictable BS appears. They want to take away your benefits. They want to throw grandma and grandpa off a cliff. They're coming for your health care. It's such garbage, and it's really infuriating because, unfortunately, you have a lot of people out there that are gullible to these messages, and it's absolute garbage. Fear is the only strategy that the politicians, that the government has, and they're terrified of telling the voters the truth, so they hide behind the slogans, because many of them in power, they recognize that when it all comes crashing down, they're done. They're not going to be in office, and so they're not going to be held accountable. There's nothing that's going to be done. They're not going to be tarred and feathered. They're not going to be charged with stealing our money and ripping us off. So we need to talk about solutions. And here's the reality. No one is touching benefits for current retirees or those near retirement. The reforms I'm about to outline apply to future workers, the people who are currently being robbed by the system, and a system that won't exist unless we fix it. So if you want to protect Social Security, if you want to protect Medicare, then you better contact your elected officials. You better tell them to adopt my new contract with America. And I'm going to go through the solutions one at a time. So the first one, not that popular, but raise the retirement age. Raise it slowly, fairly, and use common sense. 1935, not many people expected to live till 85. Today, people routinely live 20 years past retirement. This system was never designed to pay out for 20 plus years. So we have to adjust the retirement age gradually over decades, tie it to life expectancy. And we could put in exemptions for people with physically demanding jobs, because those jobs, let's face it, your body begins to break down at a certain point. And here's the reassurance that critics hate. If you're 40 or older, nothing in this plan forces you to work a day longer. Your benefits and retirement timeline stay exactly as they are. And if you're younger, the truth is, under the new Contract with America plan, you gain true ownership over your retirement for the first time in American history, meaning you decide when you've built enough wealth to retire, not the government. Second thing we need to do, means testing. And again, it has to be done the right way, not the stupid way. So I'm going to talk about a new two-tier system in a minute, but I want to quickly address this idea of means testing. I'm not talking about punishing people for owning assets. A farmer with $4 million of land is not rich in any practical sense. What I'm proposing is simple. If someone retires with a very high retirement income, far beyond what Social Security was meant to replace, well, then reduce their monthly check. Okay, this protects the middle class, and the critics on the right are going to scream, but they paid into the system. Yeah, I understand that. And our government officials screwed them. But if we keep paying full benefits to people who don't need them, the system's going to collapse faster, and everyone's going to get hit with the automatic cuts. So if we want to talk about conservatism, that's not fiscal responsibility, that's negligence. Critics on the left, they want to tax the rich, but apparently they also want to write them the full Social Security checks. Well, you can't have it both ways. So if you do means testing in a smart way, it protects the working class. It protects retirees who actually rely on Social Security. It shields asset-rich, cash-poor Americans from being punished. But the most important reform is what I call freedom retirement accounts. Now, President Trump last week talked about these baby accounts, and it's a brilliant idea. But why stop at kids? Why not use that same engine to save for retirement? The biggest lie you've been told is that privatizing Social Security means handing your money to Wall Street gamblers that are going to lose it, and that's false. Again, they operate through fear. These freedom retirement accounts, we're not giving it to Wall Street. We're giving it to you through the Treasury Department. And this is not reinventing the wheel. Federal employees already use this model, the thrift savings plan. It's safe, simple, low fee, and it's proven. So here's the proposal. Every worker gets a Treasury Freedom Retirement account, and you can invest only in broad index funds, not aggressive, risky stocks. Fees have to be capped at 0.1%. You own the account. If something happens to you, it goes to your spouse. It goes to your kids in full. And let's talk about how this new Freedom Retirement account will roll out, because this is where I'm going to call it a generational peace treaty happens, because a lot of times older people are suspicious of younger people that they want to steal their Social Security away from them. Younger people are suspicious of older people because they say there's not going to be anything left for us when we go to retirement. So we're going to break it down into three groups. Group one is age 50 and up. if you're 50 or older, and listen to this carefully, nothing changes for you. You stay in the current system, you get what you were promised, you are protected, period. End of story. That's it. You don't have anything to worry about. Group 2 consists of those ages 30 to 49. Group 2, you get a choice. You can stay in the old system if you want, or you can move your payroll taxes into your new treasury account, your freedom retirement account. Well, isn't that freedom? That you get to decide, you get to pick which option is better for you? When we look at group 3, under 30, you are automatically enrolled in the new system, the freedom retirement accounts. And you have 40 plus years now to build your wealth. But you still get an opt-out window. If you really want the broken old system, you could have it. I don't think you will. I don't think you're going to want it. But if you really want the broken system, you can have it. Now, over 40 years, this plan makes the average worker a millionaire through compound interest alone. That's it. End of story. Of course, the critics of this proposal are going to attack me. They're going to bring up this idea of double payment problem. They're going to say, but if young workers put money into their own accounts, well, who pays current retirees? And it's a fair question. It's a good question. As I said before, Social Security today is a pay-as-you-go system. So when younger workers put money into their own accounts, yes, that money doesn't go to address the current retirees. So that's going to create a temporary funding gap. Critics call it a crisis. I call it a transition, right? We use temporary bridge funding, essentially a refinancing. You keep paying current retirees while younger workers build real assets. And here's what they're not going to tell you. My proposal is far cheaper than letting the system collapse in 7 years. We either bridge finance $2 to $3 trillion over 30 years, or we continue to have an unfunded liability of $22 trillion, which is continuing to grow. And that's the guaranteed cost of doing nothing to Social Security and Medicare. So doing nothing is actually going to cost us tens of trillions of dollars over a 30-year period that we're going to have to figure out. It also guarantees a 23 to 25% benefit cut in 7 years. So now you tell me what's a better option. See, my plan trades a massive unpredictable debt for a smaller predictable one, and it creates real wealth for every single worker. When we look at the other half of the third rail, when we look at Medicare, it needs two things: protection from catastrophic costs and incentives for efficiency. So what we have to do is move to a premium support model where plans will compete for your business. And if you pick a cheaper plan, you keep the savings. If you want a premium plan, you pay the difference. And the reason that this would work is because we know that competition lowers prices. We know that choice improves outcomes. And the best part is our seniors still remain protected. That's the reason my proposals work. When we look at it, current retirees, they keep every penny they worked for and were promised. Near retirees, fully protected. Middle-aged Americans get to choose. Young workers build real wealth. Social Security becomes sustainable forever. Medicare becomes competitive and efficient. Critics talk about cuts, but the only cuts that are coming are the automatic ones that hit in 7 years if Congress continues being cowardly. And in 7 years, if they decide that they're going to tackle this, all they're going to have to do is throw an enormous amount of funding and keep the system the same, trillions upon trillions, tens of trillions of dollars, just wasted away. So the choice America faces, saving Social Security and Medicare, is not complicated. It's not radical. It's not extreme. What's extreme is pretending everything is fine as the clock begins to run out. See, real courage means telling people the truth, even when it's not politically convenient. And right now, the truth is simple. If we do nothing, both programs collapse, all of us lose. All of us lose. But if we act responsibly, we can protect every senior. We could empower every single worker in the United States, and we could finally return control of retirement to the people instead of the politicians. That's what real leadership looks like. This is what a new contract of America demands. And this is how we save these programs for future generations. Next, I want to talk about immigration, but we need to take a quick break. So everyone, hang tight and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the P.A.S. Report podcast. Now, be sure to click that follow button so you never miss an episode, and share this episode with 3 or 4 people. Because if we want to restore and preserve an America that's the envy of the world, it starts here on this podcast. It's not a question of whether can we solve the problems that we face. The real truth is that it's a matter of will. Do we have the will to solve them? And in our new contract with America, I want to turn to immigration because President Trump has shown that a president can secure the border when they have the will to do so. The proof is in the numbers. I mean, border crossings have dropped nearly 95% since he's taken office. 95%, that's huge. That's historic. That is good news. But the bad news is that just as easily as President Trump secured our border, a new administration could come in, tear it all down, throw the border wide open again. That's the danger when you rely on executive actions instead of real permanent reforms. That's why I always say President Trump is simply a Band-Aid for the next 3 years. If Congress doesn't get their asses in gear, then what does it all matter? And I'm not talking about changes that were in the Build Back Better bill signed over the summer. Those are not legislative fixes. Sure, it increased spending for ICE and Border Patrol. It included big increase in hiring new agents. But what do you think a future administration is going to do? Let's just say Democrats win in 2028. Do you not realize how they could easily cut personnel? How they could leave positions unfilled? How they could redirect the increase in funding for illegal immigrants instead of actually enforcing the law? Understand how easily this can all be undone. And this is why we need a system that locks in enforcement mechanisms, a system that prevents any future administration from sabotaging border security because of ideological purposes. We can't afford to return to a lawless and broken system that rewards illegal immigrants, that games the asylum process, that ignores our visa rules. We can't return to an illegal immigrant system where America is constantly and routinely disrespected. So let's start with illegal immigration, because one of the easiest fixes is to finish building the wall. All enhancements to our border security starts with the wall. Blocking the high traffic areas, putting the assets and resources where they're needed. And it shouldn't cost anything. This should all be funded by the seized and frozen cartel cash that we have. The second thing, anyone who overstays their visa is permanently banned from entering the United States ever again. They are no longer allowed to come to the United States. They are persona non grata, and that also goes for those who illegally enter the United States through the border. Enough is enough. You violate our rules. It shows you the lack of respect they have for the country. We need to codify the Remain in Mexico and Safe Third Country rules. We have to codify them into law. We can't use this as an executive order. Just think, that was one of the first things that President Biden undid when he got into office. He undid Trump's executive order, the Remain in Mexico policy. What we need is asylum seekers to apply to the United States from outside the United States. They need to be able to apply in the first safe country they reach. And we have to reform the asylum standards because, let's face it, the asylum standards, they've been abused for far too long. They've been exploited to gain entry into this country. Going forward, when someone claims asylum, the burden of credible fear is placed on those seeking asylum, not the United States of America. And we also have to recognize that economics is not a reason to claim asylum here in the United States. We have to make catch and release into the interior of America illegal. It should not happen. And states should have standing to sue the federal government when an administration refuses to enforce immigration law or secure the border. Now, if and when future administrations attempt to send asylum seekers or illegal immigrants to a state, they should have to provide at least 48 hours notice to the state, along with a complete list of who the people are that they're sending, detailed background investigations. And states must have the right to reject those transfers outright, because ultimately state and local governments are the ones that bear the responsibility. They bear the burden, especially when the federal government can't verify who these individuals even are and whether or not these individuals pose a risk to the community that they're being sent to. It's just not right. And if we're unable to vet someone because we cannot confirm who they are, We can't confirm their identity. Or they come from a country that doesn't really have a functioning government. Or we lack diplomatic relationships with a country, so we can't conduct a background investigation. Then that person does not enter the United States. If we can't vet them, they can't come in. Period. End of story. We are a sovereign nation. We have the right to determine who can and cannot enter the United States. It is that simple. And the fact that any of this is controversial, it shows you how stupid today's politics have become. This is just simply basic common sense. Border security should be the default position. It shouldn't be a political choice. We also need to strengthen the E-Verify system. Make it mandatory, dramatically increase fines and penalties for any business that knowingly employs illegal immigrants. Legal workers should have the right to sue an employer, the employers that undermine wages because they're hiring illegal immigrants. Legal workers should have the right to sue employers who abuse the H-1B visa system. We have to take care of Americans first. Then, and only then, do we take on others. When it comes to other countries, if they refuse to cooperate with us to curb this mass migration we've been witnessing over the last 2 decades, then we just cut off all foreign aid immediately. We're not obligated to financially support governments that refuse to help us. We're not obligated to. So why would we continue to give them money? And let's talk about legal immigration, because the legal immigration process needs to be fixed. The process has to be simplified. The time and money it takes to come to the United States is absurd. But simplifying the process, it doesn't mean that we compromise our vetting. It doesn't mean that we compromise what's needed in the United States. So when it comes to the legal immigration process, the first rule is simple. We accept people who love America, not people who hate it. Only those who want to be part of the American system, who will assimilate into our culture, not people who demand that America assimilate to them, come in. And anyone who expresses any anti-American sentiment, they're automatically denied entry. Why should we import people who despise America, who despise our culture, who despise what America stands for? Why would we bring in people who openly hate us? What's the logic in that? I mean, it's suicide. And for far too long, we have pretended that if we import hostility, somehow it's going to make us stronger. Think about the stupidity in that. It doesn't make us stronger. It weakens our country. It poses a massive national security risk to our country. How can anyone be loyal to a country they despise? So our system needs to be based on the interest and the needs of the United States. If you hate this country, don't come here. If you want to fly a foreign flag of your native country, then stay there. Again, it's really that simple. This isn't complicated. As far as legal immigration programs, put an end to this stupid idea of the visa lottery program. The visa lottery program is one of the dumbest policies that Washington ever could have come up with. It makes no sense whatsoever. It doesn't take into account skills, education, background. It doesn't look at national security concerns. Instead, it's just like, oh, we don't have enough people from this country, so let's create a lottery system. No serious country in the world would hand out immigration opportunities based on random chance. But yet here we are in the United States, and that's exactly what we do. Our immigration system should be based on merit, should be based on skills, what strengthens us, not a lottery ticket. This is the stupidity that we're dealing with. And then when you look at family-based immigration, also called chain migration, this program needs real reforms too. Yes, having connections in the United States can help assimilate quicker, but that does not mean we have to accept everyone and anyone. Okay, most Americans have no issue. If someone comes here legally, becomes a citizen, then they bring their spouse and minor children. Most Americans don't care. But that's not how the current system works. The current system is once someone becomes a citizen, they could sponsor their extended family members, including, parents who may be in their 70s. So imagine a 50-year-old coming here to the United States. They gain entry because they're skilled at technology or some industry. We have a need that needs to be filled. And now they want to import their parents who are 70 years old. What benefit does this bring to the United States? I mean, let's be honest. At 70 years old, what can they possibly contribute to the United States? Well, the answer is not much. Okay, instead, we're just importing future dependents who are going to rely on our already strained social services. So what this idea of chain migration does, it turns our immigration system into an automatic conveyor belt, bringing in extended family members who were never really evaluated on merit. They were never evaluated on how they can contribute to the United States of America. See, immigration must be based on what the United States needs. We have to give preference to those with skills that we lack, to those who can sustain themselves, that aren't going to need government assistance, to those who fill the shortages in industries that we have. We don't need to do it at the expense of an American citizen. Why? Why do we continue to do that? Our politicians, it seems like many of them care more about serving others as opposed to the people they took an oath to serve. So we need a points-based merit system, which includes work experience in critical sectors, education, skills that are relevant to the United States, needs of industry, clean criminal records, English proficiency. I know that might be a novel idea, telling people that they should learn and have to speak English in our country. They should have a demonstrated understanding and appreciation of American civics and constitutional principles. We don't need to import socialist, Marxist, or Islamist values here into the United States. And if you're qualified, if you're willing to work, you respect our laws, you love America, we want you here. Shouldn't take a decade and your life savings to come here legally. We want you to come. If you don't meet the necessary requirements, then sorry, we don't need you. Remember, coming to America is a privilege. It's not a right. Immigration is not just another policy debate. Immigration defines who we are. It defines what we value and whether we still believe that a sovereign nation has the right to defend its borders, to shape its own future. We cannot continue to import people that despise this country. And if we can't control who enters this country, then we can't control our destiny as a nation. And that is why these reforms are essential, because these reforms protect our security, our communities, our national identity. And immigration, again, it's one piece of the new contract with America. If we want to rebuild this country, if we want to leave it stronger for future generations, we have to look at the full picture and how all the issues I'm talking about work together. They're part of a broader transformation that's needed. So as we close out part 2 of the new contract with America, I'm going to step back. I want to show how all this fits together, because none of these reforms stand by themselves. They build on each other. They reinforce each other. And together, they chart the path forward for a freer, more prosperous, more secure United States. So everyone, hang tight, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the P.A.S. Report podcast. Now, we covered a lot today, and I want to bring this all together because these issues are not isolated. When we talk about Social Security and Medicare reform, immigration reform, they're all connected to each other. They all speak to the same fundamental question. What kind of country do we want to be? Do we want to be a country that pretends problems don't exist because politicians are too afraid to address them? Do we want a country that allows systems to collapse because no one has the cojones to tell the truth, to explain what's going to happen if we sit idly by and do nothing? Do we want a country where laws are optional, borders are symbolic, citizenship means nothing? Do we want a country where the government has more power to target its own people than to do what's right for the people? Do we want a country that plans for the future, that protects its people, that defends its sovereignty, that restores the principles that once made America the most successful nation in human history? And that's what this new contract with America is all about. The reforms aren't about politics. It's not about Democrats, Republicans, progressives, conservatives, libertarians. It's not about political parties. The reforms I'm talking about are about preserving our nation. Because if we keep going down the road that we're on right now, none of this matters, right? We talked about Social Security and Medicare. They'll both collapse. That's it. Our immigration system, we saw it buckle under the weight of the last administration. We saw the lawlessness. We saw the incompetence. And we saw the nefarious nature of it, where we're creating these little enclaves throughout the United States, where people aren't assimilating into the American culture. They don't have a respect for America, and they show it every single day. And who pays the price for that? Who is going to pay the price for all the failures that we're witnessing? Well, it's you and I. It's not the elites. It's not the bureaucrats. It's not the politicians. It's you and me. But the good news, every single problem we talked about today is fixable. And a big part of it is getting the government out of the way. Every single problem requires just will. We can secure programs for future generations without touching a penny for current retirees. We can build a retirement system that creates wealth and puts you in charge of your destiny, your future, your retirement. Instead of more debt, we can enforce our borders, bring order to a chaotic system, establish a legal framework that strengthens our nation, not weakens it. It does not take more bureaucracy. We don't need more government. We don't need more spending. Washington doesn't need any more power. Again, it just takes political will. It takes leadership. It takes a nation that is not afraid to stand up and say enough is enough with the nonsense. That is why this new contract with America is so important. It's a roadmap. It's a blueprint. It's a way forward for a country that desperately needs one, for a country that lost its way a long time ago. And the best part is that these solutions, they don't require government expansion. They don't require government power. In fact, they do the opposite. They return the power back to the people. They return the responsibilities back to the states, control back to the American citizen. Part 1, I laid out the first 6 reforms. We talked about the weaponization of government, the waste, fraud, and abuse, restoring federalism, lowering healthcare costs, welfare reform and self-reliance, fixing our broken education system. Today, we added 2 more critical components to the puzzle, but we're not done. Because next week, in part 3, I'm going to finish this contract with America. We're going to talk about energy independence and America's vast rare earth mineral reserves, the resources that are necessary that will fuel a massive economic revival here at home and our reliance on hostile nations, restore the concept of capitalism in a nation that once thrived on it. And we're going to tackle one final issue that's going to round out all 10 pillars of this contract. I am going to conclude this new contract with America by explaining how the reforms I'm talking about will make America freer, safer, stronger, and more prosperous. This is a series that you want to share with other people. This is a series that people need to hear because for far too long, we've been told that America is unfixable, that our decline is inevitable, that bureaucratic controls the only pathway forward, that we need to continue our drift towards socialism. It's all a lie. All a lie. America, we don't have to die if we don't want to die. That's a choice we're going to make. America can be repaired if we want to repair it. We just need leaders and citizens who are willing to demand better, who are willing to live up to a certain set of standards. So make sure that you follow the podcast. Share this episode with your family, friends, coworkers. Spread the word. Post it on social media. The more people who hear this message, the stronger this movement becomes. And that's going to do it for today's episode of the P.A.S. Report. So I want to thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being part of the fight to restore the greatest nation on earth. And make sure to tune in Wednesday. I got a great interview lined up on Thursday, the American Founders series. And next week, we're going to wrap up the new contract with America with part 3 and the final 2 issues that will bring it all home.
Thank you for listening to the P.A.S. Report. Don't forget to rate, share, and hit that subscribe button. That way you'll never miss an episode. For more exclusive content and updates, visit us at PASreport.com and follow Professor Giordano on all social media platforms at P.A.S. Report.